What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on D's Analysis. We're going to be looking at MSTR today. So we're underneath our long-term trend line here from the highs over here in November. And here on the monthly chart, you can see we still have 10 days left. But if we were to close on the monthly or the weekly underneath the structure, I think it's going to increase the likelihood of us making it down to this level, which I can see being around 324 to around 311. You can see it a little bit easier on the weekly opposed to the monthly. And if we were to lose that structure, then potentially making it down to this 260 to 234 mark. But we'd have to do the same thing. We'd have to get a close, then a retest, and then I think we touch this, and then we'd have to rinse and repeat. We'd have to close, retest, and then I could see a move down there. But there has to be a continuation of bearishness in MSTR and Bitcoin mostly. If there's a bearish move on Bitcoin, then that would ignite this to happen, but of course it doesn't have to play out like that. Hopefully we can start playing back above this structure and we can close above this upward slope or downward sloping trend line, bounce off of it, and make our way up to this upward sloping trend line and eventually break that. Right now, our primary focus is inside of this downward sloping trend line, kind of compressed between this downward sloping trend line and this key level along with this level. So right now, because of where we're positioned at, I expect us to kind of just bounce around this area before finally making a decision to break out, retest, and continue up, or break down, retest, and continue on further. From this peak that we had the week of July 14th, from 456, you can see we've had about a 21% drop. And in that same period, Bitcoin actually ended up having a 5% drop. Total, we made it down to about 9%, but currently down 5%, and MSTR is down about 20%. We tend to retest our 8-week EMA pretty often, so we'll see if we can come back for a retest before continuing on down, or if that pushback to the 8 EMA has enough power and we can close back above it, and then we can kind of flip the momentum to the upside. And on the daily, kind of on the same boat, we fell underneath it. I do think we are kind of due for some kind of correction to the moving average, the blue moving average, the 8-day EMA. And then we'll see, like I said, we can either kind of get a close back above, which would be incredibly bullish. But if we find that rejection, then it would already kind of indicate further moves down as the momentum is already bearish. And when you look at the fib here, you can see that we bounced right off the 0.5 to the 618, and now we've actually extended past that move. So we've already gone even further down. But there's nothing to look at yet because this is the bottom of the move. So really, you can't even, there hasn't been a pullback yet. So the 0.5 to 618 would be relatively in the same area. 382 would be sitting at the 397 mark. So we'll be looking at those levels for a potential area for a pullback, continuation to the downside. Weekly SMA, we're playing underneath our 20-week EMA or SMA. We got to close. We'll see if we can come back to a retest. That's what we tend to do. Once we break something, we like to retest it. So if we were to get a retest, that would take us all the way back to 380 before making some kind of decision, hopefully closing back above it instead of finding a rejection to the downside. And on the daily, we're almost at the 200-day SMA. We're at 353 and price is currently at 363. So we're not very far from that 200-day SMA. And last time we were at the 200-day SMA, we ended up getting a sharp bounce off of it and a sharp bounce. So the last 3 times we've touched it, we've had pretty significant moves to the upside. You can see here, you had a 40% move, 46% move, and then a much larger move at around 80%. So hopefully we can get something like that. Of course, it doesn't have to play out, but just be aware of that. The 200-day is a key level. And if we lose it and we close back underneath it, once we go to retest it, it's going to be harder to break it, and then that could potentially have us reach this next level at that 324 to 310 mark. On the weekly Bollinger Bands, we've shifted from the red band back underneath the blue band and potentially headed towards the green band. We'll see if it ends up playing out. On the daily, we're already at our green band, so hopefully this can be some kind of support to allow price to push back to the blue band and hopefully make our way back to the red band, and most importantly, back above this trend line here. That's where we got to start playing. We have to start playing back above that. If we don't hold that level, then we could be in for some short-term downside. It looks like Bitcoin found rejection at the same level that we spoke of prior, that 1272. We came up to touch it again, found rejection off of it. Not surprised, it's a strong level. These fib levels are just their key components. As you can see, they keep playing a key part for price targets. Ideally, like I said, we want to get a close back above this trend line and back above this fib level and use it as support, so you have confluence to the upside, and then we can touch the 1618, and then maybe we find some kind of rejection like we've seen over here. But up here at the 1618, maybe we wake up to 140 and then come back down and play around the 130s before continuing that move higher. And when you take a look at global liquidity, this is a 12-week. So it looks like we still have another leg up higher. I don't know if we're here or somewhere in between here or in this period. But if we're right here, then it looks like we have a leg up, consolidation, a leg up, and then the big correction that I was talking about. If not, then we could be in this consolidation period before the next leg up, then the big drop. We'll see what happens, but global liquidity looks like it's starting to ramp back up as the dollar is beginning to fall a little bit, not completely. That's allowing global liquidity to start seeing upside again. Now, if the dollar were to spike dramatically, then that would probably increase the odds of a large drop on global liquidity. But right now, just looking at global liquidity, that it's showing that there's a lot of capital still flowing, and that could be cycling into Bitcoin, which means that Bitcoin could be in for higher targets still at this point in the cycle. At the end of the day, we're still just trending sideways. We're in the same consolidation period that we have been in for a while. Really, we're playing in this zone right here, the same zone that we've been in for a while. It's really these two top and bottom levels, and then you have this mid level here. So we'll see if we can actually break back above here and start playing above in the upper part of the channel again. And we'll see. I mean, we've had a deviation to the downside and back to the upside. So a fake out to the downside, maybe stop some people out, and then maybe fake some people out here and get people going long and then dropping on people. You know, that's just how market manipulation works and all that kind of stuff. They're always trying to play psychological games. That's why dollar cost averaging is the best thing that you can do in these markets. It helps eliminate the thought process. Just makes it easier. On the monthly RSI, still don't think we're close to our top. We could probably be topping maybe in the 80s, maybe mid 80s or something, low 80s. As I said prior, you have this downward sloping trend line connecting to the highs from 95 to around 90. And if we connect those, depending on when we touch it, it could be around that 84 to 83 mark. And that's where I could potentially see a top for the RSI for Bitcoin on the monthly. I don't know if we go any higher than that. We'll see if we can even touch the mid 80s. That would still be incredibly bullish, as we're only sitting at 72 right now. The weekly, we're playing underneath our yellow moving average. We need to hop back above that. Hopefully this is turning out to be a double bottom. As you can see, we already have the first part being formed. We just need this piece to start pushing back up as so and make it back to overbought territory. Weekly MACD still looking pretty good. We're holding pretty bullish, higher highs and higher lows, but the volume is starting to dwindle down a little bit. Not completely, but it is slowing down a bit for sure. You can see the volume's kind of decreasing down a little bit. We'll see if we get a red flip here. If we get a red flip and then a solid green one right after, that could be enough momentum to push us past this wick at 124 and potentially seeing higher prices. On the daily, we already have a red flip, and we're continuing the momentum to the downside, and it's actually increasing that momentum. As you can see, the red bars are increasing. We just need this blue to start curling back above the orange and pushing up higher for a little bit of momentum, so we can break out of this area that we've just been stuck at for a while now. Since July, the week of July 7th, we kind of just been stuck in the same area. And this zone has been a very, very powerful area, which we spoke of prior to this happening. And it looks like it's serving as a very powerful zone as we anticipated. Hopefully we can get back above it and start playing consistently above it, because every time we break above it, we close right back underneath it the next week. We need multiple closes, just especially with this structure. Typically, you just need like one close, a retest, and then you can push up higher. But with this kind of structure and this level of resistance, we need close above, retest, and probably a second close back above, creating a fresh high. And that would probably be enough momentum to catapult this thing to the next level, which I think would be this midline here, which is where we'll probably find another level of resistance. Overall, I still remain bullish on Bitcoin for 2025, as the year is, coming to an end pretty soon. We have a couple months left. When you look at tether dominance, you can see that we found a bounce off of this key trend line that we've had established for a while here. As you can see, a strong bounce off of that to the downside, and that got Bitcoin to push back up off of that downside that we just saw. I have not moved these zones. They've been pretty much the same. You can see we found rejection off the zone in confluence with the downward sloping trend line. It looks like this is more than likely the 0.5 to the 618, I believe. Yeah, right to the 0.618. Found rejection. We'll see if it can continue on down, and then we can make that move all the way down to this blue line, which is where we could potentially find our local top on Bitcoin, and potentially cycle top depending on when it happens. If it happens later in the year, closer towards November, December, then that could be the top for the entire cycle. And then rinse and repeat. We go through our bear market. That'd be the best time to accumulate, and then you would be selling within 3 years after that bear. Potentially 2026, 2027 if there's a bear market, and then 2 to 3 years after that, you'd be looking to sell that position, or at least trim or hold, and then rinse and repeat for the following cycle, depending on your time horizon. Everybody's time horizon is different. But on tether dominance, you can see that the 20-day SMA has served as a key level of resistance, which is nice to see, as well as the 50. We found rejection off of that as well. So we pushed up to it, got rejected, and still closed underneath our 20. So we'll see if we can get that continuation to the downside, so we can see a nice rally on Bitcoin. Tether dominance is it pretty much just displays risk on to risk off. So risk on is tether dominance dropping, risk off is tether dominance increasing. So you'll see Bitcoin fall as tether dominance drops, or as it rises. As tether dominance drops, Bitcoin will increase in value. And here on Bitcoin dominance, we're still waiting to see if we end up having the real move here. As we've seen prior, we're looking to see that move all the way down to the 45, and that would be your indication that altcoin season is in full effect. But it's still very early on, but it is looking nice as we finally have broken this long-term trend line from April 2023. So hopefully this continues and we can see a break of this wick, and then we continuously just break structures on the way down and get an aggressive move like we've seen over here, which should bring FOMO to Bitcoin, and that could allow Bitcoin to touch those crazy valuations that everybody's hoping to see. On MSTR divided by IBIT, it looks like we're still trending downward. Hopefully we can find our bottom and start to flip this thing around. But for now, it's still in that continuation of that bear trend. We're still holding underneath our 50-week and our 20-week, which are very, very strong levels. And on the daily, we're underneath all three. So these are just showing a continuation to the downside. Nothing really different here. We'll see if we can get some kind of inverse head and shoulders like I talked about in the other video, and get this thing to start outperforming Bitcoin, because that's why people are in MSTR to begin with. You want the leverage proxy on Bitcoin You want exposure to Bitcoin through another company that could give you more than what you could get on the market, because you're expecting, more than a 2x on your MSTR holdings, because otherwise you just buy BitX or something like that, or BitU, one of those 2x funds, and you could just use that instead of MSTR. So we're hoping that MSTR can start to outperform and do more than 2x, because like I said, if MSTR doesn't do at least 2x and you want that leverage that you're expecting from MSTR, you could be getting that in another fund that is out there on the market. Not financial advice, of course. Make sure you guys drop a like and subscribe if you guys enjoy videos like this. It always helps with the algorithm. I appreciate all your support, and I'll see you guys in the next one.